All right, guys. So I kind of want to talk about, I guess, my routine. I don't really have a routine now, but I did in the past. But I will have a lot of people, like especially on my lives, ask me, what's your routine? And like I said, I don't really have one now. But I also want to say I live in East Tennessee, and it finally feels like fall, and it's so pretty, and it's nice out, and it finally feels cold. Like, just look how pretty these trees are. Just look. Look how beautiful it is. It is so pretty. I love it. I love it so much. I'm enjoying this weather, and that's why I'm in my car. I just got home, actually. But, like, I'm just going to sit in my car for a few minutes and enjoy the nice view. But anyways, onto my routine and stuff. In the past, I wouldn't even really say I had a routine then. I was just pretty much saturating my mind. Like, I know I talk about my eviction a lot, and because that was really the manifestation that put things in a completely different perspective for me. It's where I learned that I didn't really have to be afraid of my thoughts. It didn't matter if I wavered. It didn't matter if I had a lot of emotions, that your feelings and emotions do not manifest as long as you don't assume they will. Just don't give them the power to. But I know a lot of people, especially like if you kind of learned about the law of attraction first, and that's kind of how I got into it, was the law of attraction first. So I had learned many different things that just no longer resonate with me in the Lawofassumption. But I pretty much started out being terrified of my thoughts, any negative thoughts, any doubts I would have. I was like, I can't think like this, or else that's going to manifest. I was literally just so afraid of thinking the wrong things. And I know now that that's not the case at all. And I do not want you guys to be afraid of your thoughts. Anytime you get like doubts, negative thoughts, the fears, the worries coming up, that's the ego. That's all that is. And anytime I would experience that, I started just telling myself, that's not my thought. That's my ego talking. And I would separate myself from those thoughts. Like, that's not me. That's not me thinking those. That's literally my ego. And that helped me a lot, not identifying with those thoughts and accepting them as true. It's kind of like intrusive thoughts. I'm sure most people get intrusive thoughts. I still experience intrusive thoughts. And kind of what I do with that is I'm just like, that's a weird thought to have, but okay. Like the other day, I had an intrusive thought about putting my cat on my child's spinny toy, but I didn't do it. But it was definitely an intrusive thought that popped up, just kind of like, wouldn't that be funny? But I'm just kind of like, a weird thought to have. I'm not going to do it though, and just went on with my day. I just kind of let it pass by. And that's what I've learned to do with any thoughts that I don't find favorable. Any doubts, fears, worries, anything like that, I just kind of let them pass by. I don't interact with them. I don't entertain them. I've learned not to entertain thoughts that I don't want to experience. And a lot of the times I will have people saying, but what if this happens? What if I don't get it? What if it doesn't work? What if SP doesn't conform? There is no what if. There's no such thing as but what if. No. It's only what you decide is true for you. So don't entertain those what if thoughts. And if you do, put it in your favor. What if everything does work out for me? What if everything goes perfectly? What if I get the money? What if I wake up and have $10K in my bank account today? What if I wake up and SP fully conforms and confesses his love to me? What if I wake up and everything is just perfect? I get everything I ever desire. So if you're gonna do that, do it in your favor. That's how I manifest at this point, is I just think in my favor. If I get negative thoughts or anything, I don't entertain them. I let them pass by and I go on with my day. I still saturate my mind. I do still love saturating my mind. I love robotic affirming. I do. That's always worked for me. But like back to the eviction thing, pretty much what I did is, I saturated my mind like crazy because I had so many worries, and like my ego was screaming at me 24/7. And if I stopped affirming, my mind automatically went back to the default mode of, you're getting evicted, you're getting kicked out, you have to be out of here in this much time. So that's why I was saturating my mind with that, because we have a default mode, and I use repetition. Most people use repetition, robotic affirming, to get back into the state, to create a new default mode, to create an assumption, to shift our identities. And that's pretty much what I was doing, because my mind kept going back. It's like, not There were times I felt good, I felt okay, I felt like everything was working in my favor, but 99% of the time, if I stopped affirming, like even when I was affirming for it, I still had a pit in my stomach. I still was affirming through tears. Like I was so stressed out in that process. I was an absolute mess, emotional mess, my mental health was definitely a mess. And I've also learned that mental health is very important. Please prioritize yourself, take care of yourself. And I think after learning that, that's definitely helped me a lot. But prioritizing yourself, and I don't mean like stop affirming for your desire, but make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're okay. Make sure your mental health is healthy, is decent, isn't strained. Like it's okay if it's not okay. It's okay to not be okay. But mental health is still important, because I've dealt with mental health issues also in the past. And I've learned now that taking care of myself and prioritizing myself is very important. And manifestation is supposed to be fun and easy. You've always done it. It's just once you learn about it and you start to consciously manifest, you tend to put a lot of pressure on yourselves. Some people tend to create more resistance with certain things, telling themselves that it's so hard to manifest. I can't do this. I struggle with manifesting. You didn't struggle before until you found out about it consciously, and now you're putting on this pressure on yourself to get your shit. But the thing is, before we knew about it, we weren't putting pressure on ourselves. We weren't constantly telling ourselves we couldn't do this. I mean, some people may, yeah. But before we knew about conscious creation, it was just less pressure. In general, less pressure. And I think a big factor in that is people saying that manifestation is instant. That's what it was for me, like hearing that manifestation is instant. So I was like, okay, like they didn't explain it in a way that I understood. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to affirm I have this, and then it's just going to magically show up, right? No, that didn't happen. And then I would get frustrated and be like, well, why ain't it working? Why can't I do this? Like, they said it was instant, and it is instant. And I understand that now. It's instant in the 4D, in your imagination and consciousness. So in here, it is instant, because the moment you decide it's yours, and there is already a version of you with that desire. All you need to do is align with that version, is become that version. And I do it with repetition, with robotic affirming, with creating the assumption and shifting into that identity. So that's why I like robotic affirming, because all I have to do is think in my favor, saturate my mind if I want to. You don't have to saturate your mind, but if you're somebody who likes robotic affirming, I have the assumption that I'm gonna get my shit quick. If I saturate my mind, I'm gonna get it very quickly. So that's why I enjoy it. But yes, manifestation is instant in the aspect of the moment you decide it's yours. But then a lot of people, what happens is they contradict it. The ego gets involved, and it starts spewing these doubts, worries, and fears. And then people start entertaining those thoughts, dwelling in them. Now, it's okay if you waver. Like, there's nothing wrong with wavering in general, but don't stay there. Don't live there. You need to return back to the new story, to what you want to experience. Because at the end of the day, our dominant thoughts are creating our assumptions. So if you're dominantly in the old story, you're still living there. You're still experiencing the same assumptions as before. You're not changing yourself. You're not changing your 3D. You're not changing anything. You're just still living where you don't even want to live. So you want your dominant thoughts throughout the day. And that's like, what, 51%? Because, yeah, not 50-50, but it's like 49-51, I guess. So 51% of the day, you just want your thoughts to be in your favor. You don't have to robotically affirm either. Just think in your favor. I used to think that I had to repeat the same thing over and over, but that's not the case, because we've been manifesting our entire lives without robotically affirming, right? As long as you're just thinking about your desire in a favorable way, that's all that matters. You do not have to repeat the same boring statement over and over and over again. You could switch it up too. You can do ask-formations. So like, how did I get so much money so quickly? What if I had this much money? What if I woke up and I had this much money? There's different ways you can phrase it. I feel like affirmations do kind of give less resistance to people. And with affirmations, your subconscious doesn't take it, not your subconscious, but your ego doesn't take it as a lie. Because your subconscious is simply, it just accepts whatever you repeat. But your ego, if you already have a set belief about something and you're affirming the opposite, your ego is going to be like, that's not true. That's a lie. We don't believe that. Like, your subconscious doesn't fight you. It just accepts whatever you repeat. But your ego will fight you because it knows what you believe. And it's going to be like, we don't believe that. So affirmations can be definitely a good way to bypass that resistance and the logical mind itself, the ego. So that's a good way to do that also. But even with affirmations, if it feels like a lie, repetition's going to create that belief anyways. Like, eventually it will create a belief and the ego's going to shut the fuck up, You can always tell your ego to be quiet, to mind its business, whatever. Tell it whatever you want to tell it. That's usually what I do. I named my ego Patricia. I'm like, Patricia, leave me alone. Now's not the time. Go away. I keep getting off track. There's so much I want to say, and my mind is a little all over the place right now. But another thing I don't want you guys to think is I don't have it yet because I'm not affirming enough. It's not about how much you affirm. It's not about affirming enough, not affirming enough. People also come to me and be like, do I need to affirm more? It's not about affirming more. It's about creating the assumption and becoming the version of yourself that has it. And I do that by affirming. And again, with the eviction, I didn't really enjoy, but I was saturating my mind. I do enjoy saturating my mind now. But pretty much what I did is there were a lot of times I didn't really feel like affirming. I was just over it. I was frustrated. I was stressed out. So I just downloaded the Parrot app. I talk about this too. Recorded my affirmation and would just have my headphones in. But even though I wavered a lot, I wavered pretty much the whole 2 months. But I did notice a decrease in the ego part of things. So like the doubts, the wavering, the more that I was using repetition. So I do think robotic affirming is amazing, but I don't want you guys to think that you have to do more to get your shit. Because it just took me a while to create the assumption because I kept going back to the old story and living there, dwelling in it. I kept going back to, what if it doesn't work out for me? And I would literally just stay there and dwell in it and waver for so long. And eventually that did lessen the more I used repetition. So I noticed at the end I wasn't doubting as much. I still was. I was, in my head doubting up until I opened the email and saw it, and then that's when everything dissolved. So you're not going to fully believe it until you receive it, more than likely, because that's how it was for me with that specific manifestation. I did not fully believe it until I actually saw the proof in front of me. But even though you do not have physical proof in front of you right now, still think in your favor. Still think in your favor. So anytime you notice your thoughts going to, but what if it's not working? What if it is? It is working. It's always working. Manifestation is always working. Manifestation is simply just reflecting, law of assumption is simply just reflecting your assumptions into your reality, moment by moment. And your assumptions are constantly changing. So right now, if you're experiencing something unfavorable, that's because it's your assumptions being reflected. And a few other things I want to say is, I used to believe in the purge, and I know I've talked about the purge, and my perspective has changed. It has shifted. Because even though I'm a manifestation coach, teacher, whatever, I'm still learning new things and changing my perspective. I'm still a human. Like, I'm still allowed to change my opinions on things, right? But like I used to believe in the purge, and that's why I experienced it. But since then, I've learned that we really do not have to experience anything in the 3D that we don't want to. You cannot experience anything in the 3D outside of your own assumptions. So if you're experiencing something, that's because you have an assumption around it. It's not going to reflect something that you don't assume to be true. It can't. It cannot do that. It has to reflect only your assumptions. So, yeah, if you're experiencing if you believe in the purge, then, you might experience it. You're probably going to experience it. Or if you have the assumption that things get worse before it gets better, that's pretty much the same as a purge, because the purge is pretty much receiving the opposite. So, like, if you're texting somebody and then they randomly block you, that would be considered a purge to most. But It's simply just because you have an assumption around it still that maybe they're going to ghost you or block you or don't want you. It's simply just an assumption. And I take that as feedback now. So if I'm experiencing something unfavorable in the 3D, I take it as feedback. What am I assuming to be true in this moment for this to be reflected for me? And that's kind of how I go through that. Like, this happened. I have to have an assumption revolving around this. What am I assuming to be true? So I no longer believe in the purge. It's okay if you do, like, you can, but you don't have to. Like I said, you don't have to experience anything in the 3D you don't want to. So things do not have to get worse before they get better. It's all about assumptions. Everything is assumptions. Everything is an assumption. Everything you experience is based off of an assumption. And something else people ask me is, how do I know what's blocking me? I don't believe in blocks. I don't believe in something is blocking you. It's simply your assumption. There's no such thing as blocks. It's just an assumption. And the same with limiting, like, all a limiting belief is, it's just an assumption you have. It's not different. It's the same thing, just it's a belief that keeps you limited. So thinking that maybe, I know some people don't like to hear this, and if you don't, I'm sorry. You can absolutely do this if you want to. I just don't. I consider it a limiting belief, and I'm sorry, but that you have to regulate your nervous system to manifest. I don't think you have to. My nervous system was not regulated during the eviction. Not at all. I was a constant mess. Now, would it have been beneficial? Yes, possibly. Absolutely. It probably would have helped me feel less stressed. But, you know, it could be beneficial for people. You can absolutely do it. Absolutely. It helps a lot of people. I have a lot of clients who, you know, if they do talk about it, I'm like, this is an option. You could do it if you want to. It's not a must. But, you know, I'll give, like, you know, EFT tapping, grounding work, breath work. Repetition is also a form of nervous system regulation. Because when you're repeating, eventually your subconscious is going to accept it as fact, and you're going to shift into that identity, and then your nervous system just kind of is like, oh, this is normal for me to experience. You know, repetition is simply also a form of nervous system regulation, but you can absolutely do EFT tapping or whatever you prefer. But I do consider that a limiting belief. It's just a belief that keeps you limited. It's just an assumption people have that they have to do this to manifest. You don't. I promise. You don't have to do anything to manifest. You don't have to do shit. You create the rules of your reality. You can do whatever you want. What else? I know I'm missing stuff. I had a lot in my head. You know, I was driving home and I was like, this is what I want to talk about, and that's what I want to talk about. I just had so much I want to talk about. But you also don't have to have a routine. You don't. You do not have to, like... Now, can it be beneficial? Yeah, absolutely, if that helps you stay disciplined. Because some sort of discipline is needed. You have to stay disciplined. It's just like if you're going to the gym. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, and currently in the 3D, you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't like this version of me. I don't like how I look. I don't like how I feel. You know, I want to change. And then they discipline themselves to go to the gym however much, 5-7 days a week, however much they go. They have a form of discipline. The same, like eating healthy too, discipline. You could still, like, eat in moderation certain things, absolutely. And it's the same with, like, manifestation. You can still have doubts and negative thoughts and manifest in moderation. In moderation. You don't want to live in that old version of yourself. You don't want to go back to indulging and feasting and feeding that old story constantly. Here and there, sure, fine. It's not the end of the world. But you want to return to the new story. And it's not about staying in that state, the preferred state, 24/7. That's not very realistic, but it's just about returning to it. Return to it. And that's what I learned to do, because I used to think that with law of attraction, I had to be in this positive, high vibe state 24/7. And that really just gave me a lot of resistance and definitely stressed me out more. Definitely did no good for me. So if you're having a bad day, you don't feel so great, that's okay. Everybody has bad days. You're going to have bad days. And you can still have a bad day and think in your favor also. Like, if you want to take a conscious break, that's okay. You can. But whenever your desire pops up, just be like, yeah, it's mine, whatever. You know, you still want to think in your favor. You don't have to robotically affirm for it if you want to take a conscious break. But if you think about it, just remind yourself, yeah, it's mine. And then continue on your conscious break. at the beginning of my journey, now my very first conscious manifestation was my SP, and I've talked about this too, but I used the whisper method. I did not know anything about manifestation. I was just scrolling on TikTok about 4 years ago, and I saw a video by Hot High Priestess on TikTok. She's fabulous, but she's law of attraction. And, I didn't know anything about anything at that time. I just saw a video that said, do this and manifest your SP fast. And I was like, you know what? Hell yeah, let's do this. But at that time, I also kind of had the assumption that me and this person would get back together anyways, because we were on and off for years, constantly breaking up and getting back together. So I kind of already was like, we're probably going to get back together eventually. I don't know when. I wasn't really focused on it. But, I started doing the whisper method. And I knew nothing about anything, literally nothing. Like anything you hear about, BBL, the purge, movement. I didn't know what the fuck movement, like I didn't know anything. I just knew what I saw in this video, and it was do this and manifest them back fast. And, I was able to do that in 11 days. 11 days. Now, did it help that I probably already had the assumption we would get back together? Yeah, absolutely. But I also kind of stopped seeing him as the old version, and it really helped to hear that if you want your person, you can have them, and you can have them exactly as you want them to show up. You just have to think favorably about them. So that's what I did. I let go. I had to let go of the resentment. So pretty much what I did was I forgave myself. I was like, I forgive myself for allowing myself to choose this version of myself and this person. And I was able to forgive myself and that person and let go of resentment. That was the first step for me, just because I did have a lot of resentment, and I would constantly be back and forth of, do I want them? I mean, I want them. I love them. Then I was like, why do you love them though? Because they did you so dirty. So I definitely had to let go of the resentment. And then later on, finding out that they are simply just a reflection of you also very, very much helped. And I now know that if somebody is acting unfavorably, it has nothing to do with them. It's all about you. They are simply a reflection of you. They can only show up in ways to prove your assumptions to be true. So if you're telling yourself that everybody ghosts you, they're going to show up in ways to prove that to be true. They're going to ghost you. So you need to shift your assumptions about that. Be like, I'm never ghosted. I'm always prioritized. Nobody ever leaves me. I leave them. But yeah, that definitely helped me too, realizing that he never did any of that shit to hurt me. He could only reflect the script I gave him. He had no choice. They don't have free will. It's not that he wanted to do it, that he wanted to hurt me. He just had no other choice. So that also helped me in my journey with the SP. But yeah, it only took me 11 days. I enjoyed the process. I did. I found it fun. I visualized a lot. I would be in my head imagining together and spending time together. So, I enjoyed doing the whisper method. It's not something you have to do. Methods are just tools we use to help us get into the state, and that really helped me. Like visualizing in general, when it came to an SP, really helped me get into the state. But after that manifestation, I started looking more into manifestation, and I found Dylan James on YouTube. And I like some of his content, but still, I found a lot of different coaches, creators, and started getting all these limiting beliefs instilled into my head. And after that, it became impossible for me to manifest, because I was listening to so many people and getting all these beliefs instilled that I was just scared of my thoughts. I was trying to be on a very strict mental diet. I thought that I had to do this and that I couldn't do that. And so at this point, it's just kind of like, if you hear somebody saying something and you don't like it, don't accept it as true. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave it. If you hear somebody saying something you don't agree with, then don't accept it as true in your reality. I definitely wish I knew that sooner, but because it definitely halted my journey. Like, I manifested an SP perfectly in 11 days, and then after that, I wasn't able to consciously manifest anything I wanted after that. And it's not about manifesting what you want. You manifest what you assume to be true. You manifest what you are. And what is that saying? You become what you think. You become what you think about most of the time. Something like that. But yeah, so what you're thinking dominantly is who you become. It's what you assume to be true. So that's why you want to be careful what you think. And the content and the information that you bring in. Don't resonate with it if you don't want to, though. That's okay. But where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So after that, I just was kind of like, this is impossible. Like, it's so hard. It's so fucking difficult. I gave up so many times after that, trying to manifest just different things. I was like, this is stupid. This is annoying. I can't do this. And then I kind of, still watching content, I learned to work on self-concept around manifestation. So what I would do is, I'm a master manifester. I manifest everything I want quickly and easily. Manifesting is so easy for me. And that's what I did, because I just had the assumption that it was hard for me, that I couldn't do it, that I struggled with it, that it was impossible. So I had to change that. No, it's so easy for me. And anytime I would just get the thought that pops up, no, it's not hard. It's easy. I don't struggle with anything. Everything is an assumption. Okay? So anything can be an assumption. But so I'm not saying like every thought becomes an assumption, but everything can be an assumption. So if you're over here constantly repeating, this is difficult for me, it's so hard for me to manifest, you're creating an assumption. If you're constantly repeating that, if that's the story you're repeating to your subconscious, like, it's eventually going to accept that as true and create an assumption, and then that's going to be reflected, So anytime you catch yourself saying that, no, it's so easy for me. Everything is so easy for me. Life is easy in general. I get everything I want. Everything always goes in my favor. Everything always works out for me. Umbrella affirmations are amazing too. Everything always works out for me. Everything always goes in my way. Just stop telling yourself it's hard and that you struggle with it, because you are choosing that version of reality, and it's going to be reflected. So after that, it did get easier for me to manifest. I did stop watching as much content, especially like the eviction was just last May. So I've been on this journey for 4 years. And I just now last July, because I got the eviction notice in like the end of April, and I got told I could stay in June or July. So after that is kind of when I was like, wow, I'm really fucking powerful. That's insane. That's crazy. And I mean, there was definitely other manifestations that should have clicked for me. Like when I healed my neck and my back without needing surgery. But I literally just kept taking everything as a coincidence. Like, oh, that's just a coincidence. It healed naturally on its own. Nothing is a fucking coincidence. Nothing, because your assumptions are constantly being reflected. So if I had been assuming, oh my God, I'm going to need surgery, I would have needed surgery. But I was telling myself, affirming and visualizing that I don't need surgery. I was visualizing the doctor coming in and telling me, you're healed, you don't need surgery. I was affirming, I'm healed, I don't need surgery. But if I had been assuming and, thinking and creating the assumption for the opposite, I would have needed surgery. There is no coincidences. Everything is a reflection of you. Everything. The 3D reality is constantly reflecting your assumptions moment by moment. And that's why if one moment maybe, you're texting your SP and everything's going amazing, and then you're like, this feels too good to be true. And you might not even think that thought word by word like that, but you're like, this is different. Like, this is weird. He doesn't usually talk to me this way. But in your head, you're kind of like, yeah, this isn't going to last. This is too good to be true. And then all of a sudden they shift and maybe they ghost you. You changed your assumptions. You shifted from the version of you that had it to the version of you that didn't. So, and something else, I don't think you have to work on self-concept to manifest. You don't. I did not work on my self-concept when I manifested SP. But when I did get back together with him, I noticed my thoughts going back to the old story of, is he going to cheat again? Is this just going to be a repeat pattern? Are we going to break up again? So after that, I had to be like, and I did have to improve my self-concept because I didn't want to lose that relationship again, I feel like that's everything. I feel like this is going to be a long video. I think I got everything that I wanted to talk about for the most part. But pretty much just like, be unlimited. Don't limit yourself. Don't allow your limitations to keep you from your desires. So if you're thinking, I have to do this to get this. No, you don't. You don't have to do shit. You don't. You don't have to do nothing. You don't have to robotically affirm if you don't want to. You don't have to do any techniques. You can simply just tell yourself it's yours and make that decision and remind yourself. And I know for me personally, I heard that in the past. If you guys know Manifesting with Kimberly, I fucking love her. And I'd never really understood what she was talking about, but I still watched her content because she was like, she was very comforting to me. She was like a mama bear, you know? So I was like, she was very comforting to me to watch. I would literally be watching her live streams during my eviction and be crying. But she was very comforting. She made me feel a little bit better. Absolutely. She made me feel a little bit better about myself. It's also okay if you guys want to watch videos and content and lives of people while you're manifesting. That doesn't affect anything. I still like to watch her sometimes. But like, yeah, like you don't have to do anything. You just decide it's yours. But for me in the past, I was like, how do I do that? How do I just decide it's mine and stick to that? Because I kept going back to the old story. So, you know, robotic affirming is what worked for me because it helped me to shift my assumptions and my beliefs around certain things. It helped me to rewire the subconscious mind. So that's why I like robotic affirming. It helped me to stay in the new story, to stick to it. And eventually it came my default mode and it helped me create that assumption and everything else followed. But yeah, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You don't have to force yourself to do things. You don't. You can listen to manifestation music to help you get into the state. It's just about returning to the state. So if you fall out of it, that's okay. Just return to it. If you crash out, it's okay. Just return to it. If you waver, that's okay. You can feel what you need to feel. You can cry. You can get mad. You can punch a pillow. You can go on rampages. Rampages are great. Like, use your anger, use your emotions to help you manifest. But, okay, I think that's it. If there's anything I missed, if there's anything you guys want me to talk about, just let me know. I feel like that pretty much sums it up, honestly. Just think in your favor and don't accept anything as true that you don't want to experience. And it's really all it is. Yeah. Bye.